Hey friends, last week on the podcast, we talked about validating our offer. And if you have not gone to listen to that episode and you just want the highlights, basically we did the validation check for the online offer that I'm creating live with you guys this season. And we cleared that validation checkpoint just barely, but we cleared it. So we are going to be moving forward with creating our online offer. And today we're going to be creating the offer outline. You're listening to the Optimize Online Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Stacey Barnes. I'm a customer journey marketing strategist, and I help you maximize sales by optimizing the customer experience. This week, we are diving into the offer outline, but before we get into the offer outline, we're going to take a little step back just real quick to go over our ideal client avatar. Now, I don't know if I want to say accidentally or on purpose, maybe accidentally on purpose, skip the ideal client avatar exercise. And this is something that a lot of people do, and I did it myself. And so in going through this process of creating the online offer, I got so excited about creating the online offer that I skipped the ideal client avatar exercise. Part of it is because I have been doing this for quite some time. And so I have done several ideal client avatars. And so I kind of was like, I don't really need to do that. But then I took a step back and I was like, let's just go through the workbook anyway. Let's just make sure that, we are following the steps and we're not missing anything. So I go ahead and I do the ideal client avatar exercise. For the most part, my avatar is pretty much who I expected it was going to be. The one thing that I did kind of realize is that I sort of have two different ideal client avatars, but also they're the same. Let me explain what that means. As I was going through the exercise, I realized that my avatar comes from two different experience levels. The first one has never hosted an event before, and the second one has hosted an event before. It just didn't go either according to plan or it didn't have the profit that they were looking for. Ultimately, the ideal client avatar is essentially the same. It is a person, an online coach who has a program already that has already been sold and validated. And so they already have an existing audience. They just want to take their program and create it a live setting for their audience to get together and network and implement some of this content in a live setting. So essentially that part is all the same. The only difference really is that the the online coach who has hosted an event before knows intimately the pains of what it's like to host an event and not turn out the way that you wanted it to, or at least not turn the profits that you were expecting. Also with the person who's already hosted events before, the other thing that they have as sort of an advantage, or at least an advantage for me in terms of marketing, is they already know the power of live events. They know what it's like to get people into a room. They know what it's like to forge those connections and those relationships and how it elevates their brand. So in terms of convincing an online coach to do a live event, those that have already done it kind of already want to do it again. And then those that have not done it may still be wondering whether or not it's a good idea or if it's a good fit for their business. And so prior to getting them into the paid program, those that are brand new to the event space may need a little bit of convincing, but not much. Ultimately, when they get to the sales page, they should already know what the power of a live event is. Let's talk about the ideal client avatar exercise and actually what that is and why it's important. When you're creating your ideal client avatar, what you're trying to decide is who is your ideal client, where are they today, and what is the transformation that they want to take place? Where are they now, and where do they want to be in the future? Essentially, you're getting inside the mind of who your ideal buyer is, and then you want to make sure that you're understanding their pain point on a deeper level so that you can start speaking their language and identifying with them. You want your content to resonate with who your ideal client avatar is. I always talk about how ideal client avatar exercises tend to be a little bit more, people don't really understand what an ideal client avatar exercise is. Sometimes they think it's like giving your ideal client avatar a name and a job. And what does she read? Does she read Vogue? Does she read Financial Times? Like all of that helps paint a picture so that you can see your avatar. But in terms of knowing intimately who they are, those details are more fluff. They're kind of decoration on the cake. The bulk of what it is that you want to create when it comes to understanding your ideal client avatar is their pain points, their issues, their problems. Now, whether or not she's 30 or 35, now, obviously, there is a difference when it comes to age. For example, if you have a program that is specifically designed for more mature women, then if like, let's say it's like a hormone therapy program for more mature women as opposed to younger women, then obviously you're going to want to target a demographic of a certain age. But again, knowing the pain points of your ideal client avatar, at the same time, you could be targeting women who are a little bit older, a little bit more mature, but there may be people who are a little bit younger that have those same hormonal issues. They just happen to be experiencing them a little bit younger. So instead of specifically targeting a certain age, you want to target a specific set of symptoms, a specific set of challenges, and talk to your ideal client that way. Now, if it does help to give your ideal client avatar hobbies, to give her a job, to give her a name, to name her children, and, give her a full backstory, like, I absolutely welcome you doing that, especially if it's going to help you understand your ideal client avatar a little bit better. But if you don't want to give your ideal client a full backstory, and you just want to get to the nitty gritty, you can absolutely do that. So for my ideal client avatar, to give her little backstory, her name right now is going to be Jane Smith. She is an online coach. She already has a program. She has a wellness program that she sells online, and she helps online marketers create these balanced and productive lives so they're not busy or burnt out and taking care of themselves. And she has a successful program already. People love her. They follow her online, and she maybe has hosted an event before or has attempted to host an event before, but she wants to go a little bit bigger and she wants to make it more profitable. For my online program that I'm creating, I am going to be designing it around Jane Smith as if she is the one who is going through the program. And so every step of the way, as I'm creating this program, I am stepping in Jane's shoes, trying to figure out, okay, I have maybe hosted a live event before. I hosted a couple meetups locally, but I haven't really done any sort of paid event. And now I really want to create a full-on workshop, or a retreat. Actually, she wants to create a retreat, and she wants to speak for a little bit. She wants to bring on a guest speaker. She wants to do some exercises like meditation and visualization. She wants to do a little sound bath exercise for her guests. And sort of, it's like a spa day for these online marketers who, again, they're a little burnt out and they need to start taking themselves. They want to reset. They want to be more productive, and they just kind of need to refresh and recharge themselves. So that's what her retreat is going to be. So she wants to host this retreat. I think I called it the reset retreat for the purposes of creating this program. So I have this avatar, and I'm creating her program, her retreat for her as I'm creating my own program. And as I'm doing that, I think about, okay, what does she need to know? What does she need to do? Where can she find the venue? And stepping in her shoes makes it a lot easier to create the program, and deciding, okay, what else does she need to know? What roadblocks might she face? Are there additional tools or things that can help her, for example, finding a venue? Does she need a checklist for that? Or what kind of venues should she be looking at? What's the decision guide when it comes to choosing a venue? What's the decision behind whether or not to include meals? Can I create a resource around that? And so asking those questions about my ideal client avatar it's sort of a compass, or it really helps me shape the program so that this specific person, if she can get what she needs out of this program, then 90% of my target audience should be able to get the same things out of the program. In terms of the method that I use to actually teach you how to create the outline for your online offer, I have a very simple prompt, like an AI prompt inside of the Optimized Offer Oasis. And basically what it is that you will create your lesson plan based on 3 or 4 core lessons or core modules, depending on how big or how small you want your program to be. You give ChatGPT what those 3 or 4 main talking points are, along with maybe additional information about what they should learn within each of those. And then you basically tell ChatGPT, here's my ideal client. Here are the talking points that we're going to be learning inside of our program. And then here is some additional information to help you create an outline for my program. Then you essentially just run the prompt. There's a very specific prompt with specific words. I'm just saying it very quickly for you. But you take the information about your program, you plug it into the prompt, and then you take that prompt and you put it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT helps you create an outline. Now, this is both helpful and not helpful. It is helpful if you have a very clear understanding of what your offer is and who it's for, and you can very clearly state what those lessons need to be inside of your program. What are the things that your ideal client avatar needs to know and what they need to learn. Now, the issue that I ran into was that I kind of gave ChatGPT sort of a brain dump of the different things that they need to learn. And then what it gave back to me was a bunch of content that was out of order. And then also it gave its own methodologies of how to teach things, or just generic methodologies of how to teach things. And it didn't put in the framework that I specifically had in my head. It was quite helpful when it came to giving me ideas about what it is I should be talking about inside of the program. And it gave me some ideas that I didn't even think about. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. I should probably include that. Now, where it kind of didn't go well, again, is when I didn't give it the information that it needed, and it just kind of had to guess and speculate and give me, it filled in the information gaps that I left it based on what ChatGPT knows, what the internet has told ChatGPT. And so what I ended up doing was I looked at what it gave me and I said, okay, this is good, but this is out of order. I think I would like this in the beginning. And so I started moving things around, and then I went to Google Docs and I just literally started typing from scratch. I said, you know what, this is how I want to teach it. And even though I used ChatGPT to help give me ideas, ultimately I ended up typing out my entire outline by hand, because I knew in my brain, I knew what came first, what came second, what came third. And so in this particular instance, ChatGPT wasn't helpful. Now, where ChatGPT does shine is if you've already fed it a lot of information about what your program is already. And if you had it pull maybe information from what it is that you've already taught it. Like maybe if I already gave it some frameworks and things like that. If I already said, okay, this is how this method works, this is how this method works. And it did pull some ideas from some of the things that I have already taught it, but there were some things that were still in my head that I haven't taught ChatGPT how to do. For example, how I do ticket pricing. That is a huge part of the program. That is huge in terms of profitability. And so I had to write out step by step exactly how ticket profitability works. And then I put that in my own outline. I did start with just sort of a brain dump, and then I did put that inside of ChatGPT. And while ChatGPT can help in terms of suggestions, the final outline ended up being something entirely that I created on my own. Now, again, AI is a tool, and it is only as helpful as the information that you give it. So considering that when you are creating your outline, if you do want it to be helpful, it's great for organizing your thoughts and organizing your information, but it's not great for generating new ideas. You need to be able to generate those ideas on your own. One of the biggest things that you do want to consider when you're creating your outline, whether it's ChatGPT or whether you're creating it on your own, is how you're going to sell the program. And a lot of people don't think about how to sell the program until after they've created it. But I want you to start thinking about how to sell it before you create the program, because you're going to write up this beautiful sales page and you're going to talk about how amazing your program is and what it can do for your ideal client. And then you're going to be thinking about, okay, as somebody is reading this sales page and they're reading about all of the stuff that they get inside of the offer, they're going to make a decision on whether or not to join based on that information. And so when you're creating your offer outline, it needs to mirror your sales page. And think about what the offer looks like on the sales page. Is it too much information? Is it too little information? Do you think you need to add a lesson or add a bonus that is going to help entice that person to buy? And even when creating the content itself, sometimes you may think of like, what would be a really great thing to add is if I added a whole bunch of this. But it turns out that if you add that within the lesson itself, it's one of those things that's great in terms of like maybe perhaps being a bonus, but doesn't work in the actual lesson plan itself. And so you can actually package that information as a bonus and add a dollar value to that and make it look like it's something extra that they get with the program. But in terms of actually the curriculum itself, maybe it doesn't fit into the curriculum, but it does work as a bonus. And so as you're writing out the curriculum, you're both trying to sell the offer to your ideal client avatar while also creating a lesson plan that makes it one, enticing for your ideal client avatar, but you also want to make the lessons essentially look easy to digest. If somebody sees that they're basically taking a college level program and it looks like they're trying to get a certification in something that would take 2 years to study, then it's not going to convert as easily. People want to know that they can get through the content quickly and easily. They want to know that you have the information that they're looking for, but they also want to know that they also don't want to feel like it's going to take hours to get through. And so what I've seen people do is they'll pack a ton of information, like you're going to get this and you're going to get this and you're going to get this, and you're going to have a 100 lesson program, and it ends up just being completely overwhelming. So what I like to do is keep the core curriculum simple. Here are the 3 or 4 things that you're going to learn, like 3 or 4 modules. And then here are the little lessons within each. And then anything else can be packaged separately as a bonus. And so that way you get to include all the information that you want to include, and the person buying looks like they're getting a bonus. So looks like a win-win for everybody. For my online offer, I did decide on a name. I've called it the Live Event Marketing Accelerator. So LEMA, Live Event Marketing Accelerator. So that's going to be the working name for the program. I'm probably going to keep it. And I've decided it's going to be a 4-week intensive, and it's going to include I don't want to say basic lessons, but 4 sections. So the first one would be validating the event idea and making sure that it's something that people actually want. It's also going to be designing your event sketch as well, and getting the basics, the logistics, deciding on a venue, tickets, all of that. That is part 1. Week 2 is all about strategic profit planning and making sure that you price your tickets in a way that actually generates a profit. Then Week 3 is marketing magic. This is the waitlist open door model that I always talk about. And this is the best way to fill up all of those seats in the very first week of ticketing. Ideally, you want to make sure that you get all of your ticket sales within the first week. That way your event is fully funded before you spend a dime on a venue or anything on your event. And then finally, week 4 is simply event implementation. So executing everything that you had already planned for your event. It's just simply a matter of execution. I will be delivering the content live for this particular program. Again, this is the beta version of the program, so I'm just going to be delivering it in a live coaching call setting and just going through essentially an entire module in about an hour to 90 minutes, depending on what the content is. And then when I go to actually create the online course itself, I'm not going to have 4 90-minute lessons. Instead, I'm going to have a module broken down into 10 to 15-minute lessons to make it a little bit more digestible for somebody who's trying to self-study. Knowing ahead of time that I do want to deliver it in sort of a course format where it's like 10 to 15 lessons, that'll help me break down the information within those weekly calls itself. So maybe that way I can be like, okay, I'm looking back at the recording. Okay, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to take that out. And it's sort of future planning, getting a little bit ahead of myself, but also making sure that I'm structuring the content in a way that is easily transferable to an online course. So now that I have my ideal client avatar and I have my offer outlined, I can now move into creating those individual lessons. So essentially, the takeaways from this episode are: number one, do not skip your ideal client avatar exercise no matter how many times you've done it. You're going to learn new things about your avatar, and it's going to help you frame your offer in a way that's much more compelling to the person that's buying. The second thing to consider is design your course in a way that sells. So even though you're creating your course outline and you do want them to learn something, ultimately when somebody's looking at your course outline, they need to be compelled to buy. They need to be compelled to make a purchase. So as you're creating that course content, make sure it's not overwhelming, make sure it's easy to digest, and also with each of those lessons, make sure there's a reason behind why they're going to learn that particular thing. What is that going to help them do? What is that going to help them achieve? Don't just say you're going to learn X, Y, and Z. For example, you're going to learn the mathematical calculations on how to calculate your macros. That sounds very boring, but learn how to count your macros so that you can do X, Y, and Z, and ultimately you'll lose weight. So just figure out the big why behind each of those lessons. Don't just stuff a bunch of lessons. Make sure there's a reason behind why. And then finally, AI is only as good as the information that you give it. So if you're trying to create an offer outline completely from scratch, what it's going to do is it's going to fill in the information gaps for you based on information it already knows. However, this is information that they've already found on the internet, meaning this information is already available to anyone who's searching for it. So you need to make sure that you are coming up with your own proprietary information, your own proprietary formula that makes your program unique. And again, like I said, this point was about how using AI is AI is only as good as what you feed it. At the same time, if you've generated your entire program from AI, it means that information is already out there. So make sure that you are putting in your own information to help it organize your thoughts. But AI is only a tool. It should not be creating your program by itself for you. Next week, I am probably going to be skipping around and jumping ahead to creating the sales page for the program, and then working backwards from there to create the lead magnet and the landing page for the lead magnet. The program itself talks about lesson 4, which is how to create your actual lessons. The thing is, it's as long as you have an idea of what's going to be in those lessons, we are trying to fill up our program. And so instead of focusing too heavily on creating the lessons, I'm going to be focusing on creating the sales page and as well as other marketing assets. So I will be jumping around the program a little bit. Now, the way that I've structured the program is for those that want to have a good idea of what their program is actually going to be offering. You do want to be able to make sure that you have a place for your audience to learn. So some sort of offer hub, and then creating those actual lessons and then uploading in there. That's if you have an online course or online program that you want to create. And so for me, I have an idea of what it is that I'm already going to teach. The goal for this offer is to sell it. So once I've sold it, then I'm pretty confident that I can run the lessons pretty easily. This is stuff that's already in my head and I can teach it in my sleep, basically. And so instead of focusing too much on creating lesson plans and creating slides and all of that, I'm going to work on essentially just creating the program, getting it out there and selling it. And then as the program is live, I'm going to be setting up the lessons just a little bit before each week and running the program live. The same way that I teach my students to do is to run your program live. Again, you want to have an idea of what it is that you're going to teach, but for your first beta version, you can run it live, sell the program first, and then design it later. It goes by much faster, and it allows you to be more flexible with the content. So if you're going from week to week, teaching from week to week, it makes it easier for you to kind of get an idea of where your students are, and then adapt the program content a little bit later. Sorry about that. I meant adapt the program content as you go based on the feedback from your students. All right. I hope you guys found this episode helpful. This is, again, just a little update of where I am in creating my own online offer. And I look forward to next week where I should be creating the sales page. If I decide not to work on the sales page, I end up working on something completely different, I will let you know. Again, I'm creating this offer as I go, and this whole podcast is just about where I'm at in the journey, where I'm at in the process. And like most students, they probably don't go follow a program from A to Z exactly. They kind of jump around, skip around, go ahead based on where they're at. And so I'm doing the same thing where I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. Now, all of those resources will be there when I need them and when my students need them. And I'm trying to follow it as closely as I can so that, for those of you who do want to try out the program, that you guys can follow along as well. But at the same time, everyone is unique and everyone, it starts from a different place. And so I'm kind of jumping and skipping around ahead based on what works best for my program and my offer. All right. That is it. Again, I hope you enjoy this and I'll see you all next week. Take care.